Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 12 of Headstrong. This episode is brought to you by Luke Bryant. Luke Bryant is a jewellery designer based in Norfolk, and he's extremely passionate about sustainability and the effects his industry could have on our environment. Because of this, he's specifically designed his process to have the least harmful impact on the world that we live in, while still delivering an amazing high-quality service and product. Everything he produces is made by hand and entirely out of recycled sterling silver. All pieces are made to order, which makes every piece slightly unique and all the more special. Go check him out now at Luke Bryant on Instagram or his website and use the code Headstrong for 15% off. Thank you for tuning in to episode 12 of this season 4 of Headstrong. You're listening with me, Louis Strong, the host of this show. Now, I created this podcast to help the listener, anyone who tunes in, to understand what it means to be headstrong and what indeed the word headstrong means to all the guests that come onto the show. But to me, it means to believe in yourself, to talk about your vulnerabilities and reinforce your self-worth. Now, every guest that comes on also talks about a variety of other things, and that's no different for the guest that I have today. I'm joined by actor Freddie Thorp. Now, Freddie has recently been in a hit Netflix TV show that took the world by storm. He also has a number of other acting credits to his name, and we had a really interesting discussion about his upbringing, particularly about school. We also had a chat about his audition process and where he's actually compared himself to others. We also delicately touched on the word addiction and what that means to Freddie. So without any more delay, I will let you listen to the episode. Enjoy. Freddie, thank you so much for joining me on Headstrong. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me.
No, my absolute pleasure. I thought it was a good time to have a chat with you now, considering the recent success that you've seen in 2021 with the latest Netflix show. But before we jump into that, where are you at the moment?
I am in my flat in London, just currently in my bedroom. Welcome to my bedroom. I recently got back. I did a couple months for this last lockdown in the countryside in Herefordshire, just to try and surround myself with nature. And now I'm back for good. A wise therapeutic choice, I would suggest. Well, that was the intention. Yeah, might not have gone that way. How have you found the last 12 months then? Because it's been an odd one, to say the very least. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think I would be the only one to say it has been a taxing year for a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, I've just kind of tried to power through it in the best way I could. That sometimes meant weeks of being disciplined and trying to, get myself up early, go for walks and just do whatever I can to stay motivated and have a routine and forge a routine out of whatever I could. And then there were some weeks where perhaps I was a little less disciplined and, that whatever that meant. But I think, the thing I took from it most was just to kind of allow myself to be where I was at, and if I felt in that motivated mood, then go with it. And if I was feeling a little lazier, then to be okay with that too, because I think we definitely train ourselves to kind of almost demonize that this sort of lack of structure, or if you wake up and you have nothing to do, it's very easy to beat yourself up and be like, well, you should be more productive. But I think in this particular circumstance, it's been a nice bit of training to just be okay with that for a bit. And, I think the one kind of universal lesson I think it's showed and allowed everyone to kind of experience is life doesn't have to be at 1,000 miles an hour. And you can you can have your foot on the back pedal. You can just
if you do wake up in that, on those days where you are feeling unmotivated, that's okay.
Yeah. I think that's really something I've taken from it, and I think these last few years really have been quite, pedal to the metal, and to have that time to perhaps take a step back and breathe and hang out with my family and just, kind of consolidate my position, just figure out where I'm at, and give that headspace to just, chill for a bit, has been very meditative, I would say.
So when did you wrap the show then, Fate?
So we actually wrapped. So it was just coming up to Christmas 2019. So it was a long post production. I think what really happened was the release got pushed because during that first year or the first few months of COVID, a lot of productions got halted, and I think from Netflix's end they wanted to spread out the release of what they already had in the bank. So they just moved things around, and I think we were originally supposed to drop the show around September last year, but you know what, it probably worked out in our favor because in England anyway, we had the third lockdown, so everyone was at home waiting for a new show, and that's when we dropped it. So I think on a purely selfish level, that was probably quite good timing for us.
Yeah, I would say so. So that dropped in kind of middle to end of January. Now, exactly. What have those kind of last 3 months been like? Well, 2.5 months been like then, in terms of personal kind of response and personal interest and the public response to you and the show?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always a bit of a surreal experience because, like I just said, I mean, you shoot. We wrapped at the end of 2019. You then, messing around for a year, and that this beast is going to come out, and you never know how it's going to land. And I think particularly with this one, at least from me, I really didn't know which way it would go. Obviously, I knew it appealed to a younger audience, and that they're of course a fan base of the original cartoon. It's who knows whether they were going to like it or not as a true kind of representation of the show they've fallen in love with. So I was really kind of just didn't really know where it was going to land, and luckily we've had such a positive response. So these last few months have been nice. I mean, it's been great to see that the show's done so well for what it is, and kind of press junkets and all sorts.
Yeah, totally. What would you? Okay, if I had to give you the opportunity to pitch the show, a 1 minute elevator pitch, how would you summarize it?
Well, I mean, really, it is a drama set within a magical school called Althea, which is in a magical realm called the Other World, and it is a story about these young people who are kind of finding their footing, kind of discovering their magical powers and how to tame them, really. And there's a few influences from outside nefarious forces, and in between that, they're just being teenagers and they're falling in love and finding out their teenage angst and working out who they are, really. So it's that's how I would briefly summarize the show.
Yeah, totally. So, but without drawing on your character and comparing you, but did you draw on personal experiences yourself then for the character and stuff like that? Do you ever bring in kind of personal ideas and concepts when you take on a character and in interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for me anyway, it's so important to, when I first take on a character, the first question I'll ask is, how is this person similar to me? And I kind of look at those and identify those, and they can be quite tenuous, or we're not talking about direct comparisons, but even just character traits or just little things, nuances that are similar. And then of course I asked myself, well, how is he or she different? And because he could play a woman, who knows? I actually did do that at school. That was
Of
for
course.
for my A levels. I played a very quite a loud lady. But yeah, I'll ask myself how they're different, and then that's the work I've got to do, really. So often the similarities in the character is the easier stuff to get right, but it's the things that are different. But I think it's really important to bring a part of you into each character. You still got to protect yourself, but if you want to convey a level of truth, it's important to see what you can draw within your own history, your own life, to bring that into the role, because often that can help.
Totally. How do you find that training side of things for just generally in terms of film, TV, and theatre, but the combat side of things and the fighting? How do you find that? Do you enjoy that? Because I anticipate that you do.
Well, I mean, it's part of the job, isn't it? I think
as well. It's quite a good day at the office.
It is a good day at the office. No, I absolutely. I mean, if I'm totally honest, I mean, what excites me most is doing a really, really cool scene. I mean, not. It's not the fighting. It's not the stunts, whatever. As exciting that is, I mean, I come home from work. The best days I have is when you've done something where it's been really alive, and you just that's what gives me the butterflies and the adrenaline. But I've worked on a couple projects where I've been quite active and had to do some stunts and the like. And yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's there's definitely, you feel like a child again, because you've got these very cool stunt teams who show you the ropes, but you always feel safe, of course. And yeah, you just get to do some wild stuff that you'd never really thought you'd do.
With a show like Winx, was there quite a tight-knit kind of group within your kind of main cast then? Because I imagine that's quite important in a piece like that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important in every job, but particularly stage. But I mean, film as well. It's so much about collaboration, and if you can be, really gel as a group on an ensemble piece like this, it absolutely adds to the magic both on and on set, because the chemistry is real. But yeah, I mean, the dynamic was brilliant. I mean, it did feel like school again. I mean, it really did, because the cast is probably, the core cast is about 10 of us, I'd say, and all of varying ages, but they were all a bit slightly younger than me, and we're in a school environment. It definitely had a nostalgic feel in terms of the school environment. But yeah, I mean, we all got on well, and it's very important that is the case. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's dive in straight away. Series 2, what's going on? Give us the goss.
Series 2, yeah, well, we recently got greenlit, which is very exciting. We have not got dates yet, but it's looking like the second half of the year. We've got a couple more episodes, which is great. So the shoot will be a bit longer.
Great.
And in terms of story, even if I wanted to, I can give you anything, because they are very tight-lipped about it. I mean, we did chat to the showrunner towards the end of season 1 on the shoot, and he definitely has an idea of where he wants to go. So we have a rough idea, but there's definitely nothing I could give you concrete, because we don't know.
No, of course, that's fair enough. With a production like that, I can only anticipate it being very open to a select few.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that select few is as small as the writer's room. And I don't think it's not even just about complete secrecy. I think they are writing it as we speak. So it's just an evolving beast. So we will find out probably only when we get the first script through, which will be closer towards the shoot. Sure.
It's just to kind of go on a tangent myself there. You use the word beast, and that's a very accurate description of, for those who have never quite often, many people have never experienced what it's like to be on a set, and I can only imagine a show like this as well is on location. Is it? Are you on
It's a
location?
mixture, actually. It's a mixture.
But I
So
mean,
we're
give us a sense of like the capacity of what we're talking about here. Well, not necessarily for me.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely bananas. I mean, film sets are. I mean, they call it the traveling circus because it is. The amount of people involved on a project like this is monumental. I mean, I couldn't give you numbers, but what happened on this one anyways, we were living in Dublin. We were shooting the whole thing in Ireland. There's these studios about 45 minutes south of Dublin called Ardmore Studios. And that is the unit base. That's where the production office is. That's where they also had 3 sound stages, which was the majority of the interiors were all shot on these sound stages. And even us, when we went round for the first time, they were still being built. And I mean, these sound stages are absolutely monumental, and they construct complete worlds and habitats within them. And it's always surreal going in, and it's always amazing how they do it, and the work that the designers put together and put in for that. And yeah, I mean, that was great. And then it's a mixture. We then shot a lot on location as well, which is mainly the exterior shots and the stuff in the woods. And we were based at a house called Kilruddery, which was this old, I couldn't give you a date, but big old stately pile, which was only 20 minutes from the studio. And that was kind of the exterior of the school. And we did a lot of days there as well. And then some days we'd have 200 extras to be the rest of the students in the school. And I mean, it's a mad experience that doesn't get old yet.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you've got a pretty magnificent collection of credits to your name already, and they're pretty great. From Overdrive, Safe, obviously another Netflix show, and you've been working for an actor now for a few years. And
yeah.
I'm curious to ask you, now that you're finding this success. I mean, there's probably 2 or 3-fold. First of all, how do you find the life of an actor and the kind of unpredictability of the quote unquote, when's the next job coming, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, big question. I mean, this is what I signed up for. And I, as you say, I've been doing it for a while now. And I think you're constantly learning more about how to position yourself in your world of being an actor. So, and what works for you and what doesn't. And I think that there's such a contrast between when you're working and you're on set and, you're very structured, rigid, schedule and routine, and then you come home and you're just back into normal life, and it's about where's the next job coming from. And of course there are slow months, but for me, I feel it's you're constantly auditioning, right? So it never feels too far away. It's just about patience and waiting for the next job to come along. And of course that can be an anxiety sometimes, but I think I do my best to tune out any anxiety about it, because at least for me, in the past few years, even when you're at your lowest point, something usually pops up, and before you know it, you're on another roller coaster. And that is what is so exciting about doing a job like this.
That's what it's all about. You mentioned the word routine there, though. So do you thrive off having that routine when you're working on a job? And have you kind of, over those years then of when you have gone from job then to back to your normal kind of life and surroundings, have you found a suitable routine that works for you when you're not working?
Yeah, good question. Well, look, I think, I can't speak for everyone, but yeah, when anyone has a routine, I think for whatever reason, you're more in the flow of life, and actually the busier you are, the easier it is to get shit done, and so I think over the years I've realized the most important thing I can do when I am at home is create a routine for myself in whatever form that might take, and I am still fine-tuning that routine. I mean, I by no means have it down. I mean, it's always about keeping busy for the most part, but finding ways in which to be productive and feel like you've achieved something. So it's not about just going for dinners all the time or seeing friends and going on holiday, whatever whatever that means. It doesn't lubricate happiness. That you need to be doing stuff where you feel like you've achieved. And so for me anyway, that's what I always aim to do on my off time, because only then am I really in the right flow, that when the auditions come along, I'm feeling fresh and alive, so I can really do my best.
I'm curious to ask you then, because this is something that I struggle with from time to time, and it's very important to just kind of get on top of it from time, to help you switch the mindset. But something that actors are incredibly good at is comparing ourselves to other people, and through kind of no kind of reason whatsoever, but it just is one of those things. The mind is the evil genius amongst us. How does that happen to you? Do you find yourself comparing yourself to other people at similar ages in the industry and things like that?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, of course there has been times, and you can look at, even usually more peers, people I know, and like every now and again you could look at, oh, they got this job and that's great and whatever. But I actually, for the most part, I'm very much a believer in the fact that we've all got our own paths. There's enough work out there for everyone, and all you're doing by comparing yourself to other people is creating a narrative where you're not good enough. Because if you're comparing yourself to someone who's doing better, for example, all that does is manufacture this mindset where it's like, well, then he's doing so, he's got something I don't, or he's doing something better that I'm not, and that is not healthy. And it is, well, I wouldn't say easily avoidable, but it is something that you should really spend the time and attention not to do, because it's completely self-manufactured. I mean, it's only you who's creating that narrative. So although definitely for the first few years, I mean, it didn't even occur. But I make a considered effort not to, and that just goes hand in hand with I think the quiet confidence that you need to kind of persevere in an industry like this. Yeah, I think
it's important to definitely retain that self-confidence, because otherwise you can't really be an actor, really.
I mean, it's, well, I mean, but also almost like we were saying earlier with lockdown, perhaps you might slip into that mindset for a bit, and I think the best way to approach it from there is not to demonize yourself for it, and just say, okay, well, this is what's going on at the moment, and kind of just accept that and let it pass. Because again, if you like fight it, again, all that does is create a bit of conflict within yourself, and that probably only precipitates it and makes it hang around for longer. And all it takes is just a good meeting or a good day, a good conversation with someone in the shop, and suddenly your mindset can shift. So I think it's just about having an ease and a kind of fluidity to your, the fluctuating mindsets that perhaps we all can be subjected to. And that is what the constant evolution and learning I'm still figuring out. But that's the approach I have, which is just try and approach it with a sense of ease, and don't create more problems for myself than I need to, and just accept where I'm at that time. And eventually, like passing clouds, the sky will be blue again.
This episode is sponsored by Luke Bryant Jewelry. Now, Luke is a jewelry designer and every piece is made by hand with recycled sterling silver. Luke does have set pieces, but every piece is completely unique and different. He also offers a custom jewelry service where you can work with him to create something to suit all your desires and needs to make your jewelry dreams come true. If this sounds good to you, go check out @Luke Bryant on Instagram or check out his website and use the code Headstrong for 15% off.
Yeah, something you also mentioned as well is then that there's the permanent sense of consistent auditions, and that requires a lot of attention. And I'm curious to know how your audition process has evolved kind of over the years since your time at Lee Strasberg in 2013, and how you tackled it then when you were 19. Yeah,
18,
from when you were
19,
18, 19 to how you are now, and how that audition process has evolved, and your thought process behind an audition, and how you kind of tackle one.
Sure. Well, I mean, it definitely has changed. I mean,
and so it should, I'm sure.
Yeah. When I first started out, I think you're just so full of confidence and perhaps a little untainted, because you can definitely be tainted by the monotonous routine of auditions. But when I first started out, I definitely would fly in, smile on my face. Sometimes would be reading off the page, but as long as I would never compromise on the performance. But if I just did it well and I was very familiar with the text, I'd literally go in, script in hand, talk, whatever, and I was a lot more casual about it then, and that worked for me, which is why it didn't cross my mind to be like, okay, you need to blah 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 blah. But certainly over the years, I take each audition a lot more seriously, and I always put in a lot more preparation. I would never go into an audition now and not off book. I mean, I'll always have the lines down. And that's a given. But what's interesting is I feel like even when I started, that was fine. It was fine to go in with the sides in your hand. Whereas now I feel like it would be a black mark in my my margins if I turned it. So I don't know whether that's just an age thing where they kind of are more forgiving for younger actors or whether it has just changed. But no, anyway, I definitely feel a lot more free as well when you're completely off book. You are definitely a lot more able to play and explore, and you're not constantly kind of worrying about what the next line is. But yeah, I mean, auditions are great. I really enjoy them because each one is an exciting prospect, and the only ones I really come out of feeling bad about is when I know I haven't put in the work. So it's not so much I might not get the best response from them or whatever, but that doesn't bother me. It's only if I know I have undersold myself. So I just didn't prepare enough, or I messed up here and there. That's when I come out of the room and I'll beat myself up. But if I go in there and I do a good reading and that's it, I really am. I'm not fussed about the outcome, because that's all you can do. I mean, that's it. You're there to offer your take on what you could perhaps bring to the role, and that might be what they want, that might not be, but often that's it's not about your performance. It's just whether you're right for the role or not. And I really firmly believe that.
It sounds like you've learned to kind of compartmentalize then your kind of approach, because I always think that you're going into the room or like I was speaking to someone the other day about it actually, and basically said that they're not against you at all. No one in the room is against you. They actually want you to succeed because they're looking for someone ultimately. And that's it. Like, they're not there to critique you. They're there for the greater good and the benefit of your presence, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and they're there. I mean, not even. I mean, they're there just to get the role for the director that's hired them. You know, but they by no means, you know, are there to mess you up or make you feel bad. They're there because they need to do their job, which is find who they think is suitable for the role. And it's not even compartmentalizing it. It's just actually the case. I mean, even on this last the shoot that I'm about to start in a couple of months, I have slightly been brought into the casting process for some of the other characters, which is the first time I've been on that side. And it's so interesting because it's only reaffirmed my mindset about this, because, you know, for the first time I'm looking at other people's tapes or other people's auditions, and it does apply. I mean, for example, the one of by probably the standout audition was this lovely girl from France, and she was definitely the best actress, but she really just wasn't suited for the role. And that was a conversation the director and I had, which, you know, blew my mind. But she just wasn't right for the role, and that just showed you that even though she was probably the best performance, it just wouldn't have worked in context of this script. And that is what the selection process is. So as long as you go into the room and you feel happy with what you've done, and the chances are they're looking at it and they're being like, great, he's great, but not right for us, next. And that's not rejection. That's not your shit. That's just, all right, cool. That's not, and you know, there will be one or two that is right for you, and that's the ones that you land. And so I it's not even just a, you know, a crutch that I use to get through the rejection. I genuinely don't see it as rejection. It's just, I mean, unless I do a bad job, and then I'm like, well, that's on you, because, you know, you could have done better. But that's my job to make sure I go in there and at least do the best I can. And so, yeah.
You sound, well, it seems to be going all right. Then you're doing something right.
Well, hopefully, I don't know. If you say so.
Now, if you're happy to, I would, I'd like to kind of talk about your childhood and family and your upbringing, if that's all right, and if you're happy to talk about it.
Yeah,
because we spoke
sure,
on the phone, I'd say a couple of weeks ago now, and we were talking about something that's particularly notable in your life that might resonate quite a lot with a listener of this podcast, and that's notably somebody that you know that has tackled addiction. And I wanted to talk to you about, as a child, what that experience is like, and at what age you found out about it, and actually knowing knowing what it's like as a child, and do you actually fully comprehend the meaning of it, and when did you comprehend the meaning of it?
Of course. Well, I mean, look, I could speak for a long time about it, but essentially, yeah. So I grew up with my father, and he has always struggled with addiction his whole life, and hasn't. I mean, my parents split when I was 3 years old, so I grew up primarily with my mum, and the approach she always took to that was, as soon as I could comprehend it, which, I mean, we're talking 8 years old, you know, I think she probably would have seen how my character formed. I mean, I was always naturally inquisitive, so she felt comfortable to have very frank conversations with me, and she was never sugar-coated. So I think from a very early age, I would be having quite frank and mature conversations with my mum, and coming to terms with what that is and what that means. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's a big thing in my life. And actually, more and more as I get older, I also somehow feel that hole a little bit more. But yeah, I think what I can really reflect on, I think that I can compare to perhaps my peers at the time, is it did give me a sense of maturity, perhaps, from an earlier age, because I was slightly grappling with these ideas that perhaps at 15, 10, 12, whatever age I was, but others might not have. And I think that always created in me a desire to engage in conversations like an adult, and it matured me from a young age, and I definitely think that's good. That was good for me. I mean, it was who I am. It formed my character in such a way that, and perhaps also drove me towards acting. I mean, it's something that I'm sure a lot of people have, family members. I think every family will be touched by addiction in some way. And I think the best revelation I had, which probably came when I was around 16, was learning to let go of any sort of idea that it's firstly because of me, or like that, because I think often you think, oh well, if he loved me, perhaps he'd change, and so if he's not changing, that's because he doesn't love me. And you put yourself through that pain, really, and it's so hard not to feel like that, because it's just the way it is. And the most cathartic realization for me, which was really hard to come by, was just to let it go and accept him for who he was, and remove myself from any situation. And it wasn't about, and kind of forgiving him, and just, not harboring any resentment, because that wasn't for him. That wasn't for him to remove any guilt that he had. It was for me, because the more I held on to negative emotions and kind of attached negativity to my relationship with him, it only made me feel bad. And so that's why it was such a hard kind of thing to comprehend. Is actually the kindest thing I can do for me is forgive him, and it really was a turning point in my relationship with him, because I just came to not expect anything from him. And when I think often, well, for me, when I was younger, it was that disparity between expectation and reality. So I would almost without a doubt be let down by him, false promises, I'll come to this, I'll see you then, I'll do you this, and just, strange things. Because I was always expecting, oh no, maybe this time he's going to be the father I've always wanted. Maybe this time he'll be, and ultimately that it never proved to be true. So it was just about perhaps not expecting anything from him, and I was never disappointed. And it's sad that is the reality, but it's been good for me, and it's definitely helped me grow into a position where I now can have a very friendly relationship with him, because we're friends, we're friends, and I love him for who he is. But I'm never gonna feel that whole of that the real paternal, caring figure in my life. But so what?
Was there? I mean, thank you for sharing it. But when you were in those younger years and those more formative years, what was that? Was there a presence there then? As in, what was the kind of dynamic and situation, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I grew up mainly with my mum, but he wasn't. I mean, he lived all over the place. I mean, he lived in Sri Lanka, Jamaica, Thailand. I mean, he was all over. But every now and again, there were moments, months, years, whatever, where he was in London, and of course, I'd see him. I'd be allowed to go to stay with him for weekends, and yeah, I mean, it was quite strange. I mean, he was definitely still in the throes of addiction, and I think I saw some some things that perhaps an 8-year-old shouldn't see. But again, it was stuff that I digested and kind of processed, and it only, helped me create my kind of view of the world, and it gave me an insight into the other side of life. And it's not all kind of rosy. Going to school, you can be protected in this bubble of lessons and whatever, but I definitely saw the other side, and actually that, I think that probably harbored an adventurous spirit in me, because I was like, God, life can offer so much, and there's so much to it. And I know I'm seeing life, as a young person, I'm seeing life through these blinders. And I definitely, it instilled in me, I mean, perhaps not directly that my relationship with my father, but I've always had this intuitive yearning for adventure and what's on the other side of that curtain. I want to see what every corner of the world has to offer. And I think that's been with me from a very young age. But yeah.
So when did acting kind of fit in then? Where did it fit in your childhood? Did you start young?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it since, I mean, obviously we're talking school plays and whatever.
Yeah.
But since 6 years old, doing the nativity play and whatever, and doing all that. And then I did do a little advert for Volkswagen when I was, I don't know, probably 10 or 11, which was quite funny, which needs to probably, it's going to rear its head at some point. But I definitely, I mean, I wasn't thinking I was going to go into it as a profession at that point. But it was always a place where I felt comfortable. So I would always find myself as part of any school play I could get my hands on. This was the safe space where I felt like, right, it felt right for me. And I always loved performing, and I always loved getting stuck into a text. So, but when I really considered doing it professionally, it was around 16. I was doing a school play, and the director, he was the head of drama at school at the time, a guy called Simon Dormandy, who was an absolute legend. And I might not perhaps have had the best relationships with all my teachers at school, but he always saw the best in me, and he was just a stand-up guy, like really just great, and always saw me for what I was. And I think I could have slightly was misunderstood by a lot of teachers at school, but he always, I don't know, saw me in a positive light. Anyway, he was directing a play, and unbeknownst to me, he invited a couple of agents to come watch. And that was when I was 16. And then the next day I got an email it was Wearing McKenna. I got an email from them saying, "Hi Freddie, watched your play last night. We'd love to have a chat, perhaps, take you on, blah, blah, blah." And that was the light bulb where I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I want to do. And so from about then, it's been my absolute drive and goal. And that was that. Yeah.
How do you reflect on your time at school then? Because I mean, we were introduced by a mutual friend, but I mean, you were a couple of years above me at school, and I'm interested to know your experiences then, and how you reflect on education as a whole rather than necessarily school.
Yes. Okay. I always felt trapped at school, and it's not about just the specific school we were at. It's not about anything like that. I think no matter what school I was at, I would have felt trapped. I mean, I always was just, I think that institutionalized feel just always was just a bit closed box for me. And it goes back to what I was saying before. I just wanted to get out and adventure. And I knew that there's so much out there for life to offer. And I always felt slightly claustrophobic in that environment. However, education is so important, and I am grateful for everything I've learned. And I think school is just weird for a lot of people. But I think I was a little bit of a, ragamuffin. I had my ways, and I did find myself in trouble quite a lot, but it was never malicious. It was always just cheeky, whatever. It's just being cheeky and, wanting to push the boundaries, which is still who I am today. I mean, I like to just take things to the line, and maybe dip a toe over the line, and then perhaps come back to the right side of the line. But it's just about, I like to push boundaries and see what's what.
Yeah,
and that was definitely true at school as well.
I mean, I would ask you if you can divulge further on that, but I don't know how much you want to say.
Well, I mean, it's nothing that interesting, to be honest, but I mean, it's not worth going into. It's just silly schoolboy.
So what's next for you then in terms of goals? Because you're saying that your acting is your power and your drive in your life. What is that ultimate goal then, or is it? Do you have a set kind of goal for the year, next 5 years, life goals, or is it kind of individual goals? Hit one and then onto the next. Hit one onto the next.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's an overarching goal of just being happy and healthy and successful, and keep the momentum with work, and to keep on moving towards the kind of material that excites me, and to do films that I would want to watch. But in the short term, I really kind of just take it day by day. I mean, it's so kind of, you have to kind of have short-term vision in this industry, because you don't know what's coming up next, and you can't plan for the future, because for all you know, you're going to get something that's might film for 3 years in Hungary, whatever, and it's just, you just got to go with it. So I think on a day-to-day, it's just about keeping sane, keeping healthy, evolving as a person, constantly learning, and just with the underlying drive of moving forward. And that might be 1 step forward, 2 steps back, then 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But it's all part of the journey, and I try and take it all in my stride. And I suppose the ultimate goal is just to be doing work that I'm really excited about, and that I want to show off, and that I would come away being like, that was good, that was cool, that was.
This is a question that I ask every single guest at the end of my episodes. What does the word headstrong mean to you?
Interesting. I mean, I would say headstrong really means, to me anyway, is to have that quiet confidence, and quiet confidence is what I think helps anyone achieve what they want in life, no matter what profession you're in. It's about a solid understanding of yourself and what you can achieve, and then just quietly going about that in the way that you've learned how to.
Very nice. Freddie, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Have a lovely well, I wish you all the best with everything else that's coming up this year, with Winx especially.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Luke Bryant Jewelry. Now, Luke makes some fantastic handmade jewelry pieces entirely out of recycled sterling silver. His process as well is with the environment in mind, and everything that he does is designed specifically to have the least harmful impact on the world that we live in. If you're interested in some new sterling silver pieces, be that necklaces, rings, bracelets, go check out @Luke Bryant on Instagram, or check out his website and use the code Headstrong for 15% off. And that is it for this episode of Headstrong. I want to say a huge thank you to Freddie Thorp himself for joining me on this episode and having a really engaging and interesting conversation. I wish Freddie all the best for this year. I hope to see Winx Season 2 out very soon and any other projects that he is working on. Thank you so much to you, the listener, for tuning in once more and having a listen to this chat with Freddie. I really appreciate it. Now join me next week for my series finale with an absolutely stellar guest.